How about that cigar?
Well, how about that cigar?
Was that an attempt
It was
at Jimmy Stewart?
Yes.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you a pass on that one. Guys, welcome to the Drew Estate Cigar Studios for episode 124 of How About That Cigar Live. Yep, thank you so much, as always, for joining us live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and for those of you listening after the fact on the audio podcast, thank you so much for listening to us while you drive down the road, while you work out, whatever it is you do when you listen to your favorite audio podcast. Thank you so much for making How About That Cigar a part of your listening enjoyment. And as always, guys, we are brought to you from the Drew Estate Cigar Studios, and let's talk about the beautiful new 25-count boxes for the Liga Privada Unico Series Papas Fritas. Since the launch of Papas Fritas in 2012, the Vitola quickly became one of the most beloved and popular offerings in the Liga Privada Unico Series line. The small, handy size made the cigar an excellent choice for cigar lovers who only have a short time to enjoy a rich and savory Liga Privada. While the packaging will be changing to consumer-friendly 25-count boxes, the uniquely constructed cigars in each box will remain the same Papas Fritas the marketplace has come to love. For more info on all of that, please visit drewestate.com. So, Garrett, episode 124, our favorite night of the week, Monday night.
Yep.
We're coming to, the last 30-ish games of the Major League Baseball season.
I think we got a shot.
You think we're only 17 and a half games back right now?
I think we got a shot.
So you think Yeah, I don't think we have a shot. We would. Hey, you guys know how much we love the Minnesota Twins, but no. Oh yes. I shaved.
You did a thing.
I shaved off my beard. So for those of you tuning in, expecting to see Matt here, Matt's taken the night off. Mm-hmm. Matt's younger brother has Earl has stepped in, and we it was just time, so. As you guys know, I pick a random time during the year. I don't really even pick it. It's just during the year sometime I just say I'm tired of the beard. I'm sick of it. I shave it off. I give the skin on my face a few weeks to relax, and then I grow it right back. And most people know me with the beard. Very few people know me without it. I know for a fact that Justin Andrews from Diesel is going to be hounding me to grow it back. He hates.
Disappointed.
The last time I shaved off my beard, he started in on the comments saying, "Matt, grow the beard back right now," and he was very upset about it in an unreasonable kind of way. Yeah, yes, I realize it's a shock to the system. So yeah, it's been a rough season for the Twins. They didn't do well. There's no way we're going to turn it around. You can't make up 17 and a half games with only 30 games left in the season. What are you going to do? They'll be back next season.
Even in a bad division.
Even in a bad division, we're still in last place in the division. And 8th from the bottom in all of Major League Baseball. I think we've only had 58 wins. I'm pretty sure we've only had 58 wins so far. So the hunt for 100 losses, that is still in play. I don't think we're only going to win, 2 or 3 more games, but
yeah,
it's just been a bad season.
Yep.
Preseason football has been an absolute joke.
Dumpster fire.
Most teams have not been playing their starters at all, where typically you see they play, the first 2 minutes of the game, and then they put in, everybody else to give them a shot. So many teams have been playing their starters 0 minutes.
Yep.
And I think a lot of them learned last season there was no preseason because of the COVID year.
Yep.
And I think a lot of teams learned, hey, we don't need a preseason. So they're resting their starters. So guys, as always, let us know what you are smoking and drinking while you watch the show. Put that in the comments. And share us out right now to your favorite Facebook cigar groups. We have the YouTube broadcast as well. Share it out. Let everybody know we're live. We have a great conversation coming up this evening. We have a wonderful special guest. And speaking of special guests, you guys know that on How About That Cigar Live, special guests are always brought to you by Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, the internet's largest and easiest to use virtual cigar store. Corona Cigar Company offers you the finest handmade cigars, humidors, and cigar accessories at the absolute lowest possible price. You'll also find unique and limited cigars containing Florida sun-grown tobacco. As a proud American, president and founder of Corona Cigar Company, Jeff Borshowitz believed it was possible to bring cigar tobacco farming back to Florida. At Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, you'll find the best selection anywhere in the world of cigars containing this special Florida sun-grown tobacco. If you live in Florida or are just visiting, be sure to visit any of the great Corona Cigar locations in downtown Orlando, Sand Lake, Lake Mary, and also the Davidoff of Geneva Lounge in Tampa. For more info on all of that, please visit coronacigar.com and floridasungrown.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please put your hands together and welcome to episode 124 of How About That Cigar Live from J.C. Newman Cigars. Bobby Newman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. God, Matt and Garrett, thank you. We're honored to be here. Before we were talking before we started, and I'm sitting outside my patio, and everybody in Florida has pools, and it's 86 degrees right now, and it's we're an hour later than you, so it's 9:40. Aren't you Central Time?
We are Central, yes.
Right, exactly. And it's a 90+% humidity, and makes me want to fly up to Minneapolis right now. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky right now. It's 74 degrees. It's beautiful outside. We had a very unusual summer. I mean, a lot of people don't know that Minnesota, aside from the overall climate, Minnesota topographically is not much different than Florida. It's basically just a big swamp. And so we get a lot of very high humidity in the summer, but this summer was one of the hottest on record and the absolute driest on record that I can remember. The water levels in every lake and river and stream are extremely low, even with a ton of rain over the weekend. You know, it is what it is. It's been a hot summer, but we're glad that you were braving the Florida humidity and heat with us this evening, and we're looking forward to having a great conversation. What are you firing up to start out the show tonight?
Well, I thought I love this is the first time I've been I've seen your show, and I was not aware that Jeff Borshowitz, our brother, a neighbor down the street, is one of your sponsors. That's great. And
yeah,
we just wonder. So what I'm smoking is the Yagua, and we brought it out last year. We make 1,000 boxes, and we allocate. We got them in Thursday of last week, and by this Friday they'll be gone. We allocate them all out to our regional sales managers. That's what we call our salesmen, and it's a Connecticut broadleaf cigar. The Yagua, some of them are 3-sided, some of them are 4-sided, and some of them are 5-sided. And we have, I'm smoking this year's version of it. It's a little bit dark. It's a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper. It's a little dark, so we gave it a little more time, so the wrapper's a little darker and slightly more robust than last year. But I think hopefully everyone will enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a really unique cigar, and we saw the info come out about that today, that it's getting released again. And it's, for those of you guys who haven't tried it, it's a really unique smoking experience, because they're not, you have to go into it with an open mind, seeing the cigar, that it's not perfectly cylindrical. It's not, they're not, they don't spend time in molds like a lot of our other favorite cigars do. So they look. They look slightly rough, but they smoke very nicely. So I encourage everybody to go out there and check those cigars out when they hit your shops. So Bobby, we are very grateful to have you on the show. J.C. Newman is a cigar company that has rich history, and that's one of the things that we really love, is diving into the history of the people, the history of the companies. And really the history of the families. That's one of the things that we love about so many companies in the cigar business, and we talked a little bit about this before we went live, that there are so many family-oriented businesses in the cigar world, and JC Newman Cigar Company is really a prime example of that, as far as I'm concerned. There's such a rich history, and so when we were doing the show prep for this, I actually went out and I encourage all of our viewers and listeners to do this. There's actually a link to the book written by JC Newman that was published, I believe, not long before he passed. But there was a book published, and I started reading that book, and I could not stop reading it. I was just enamored with what I was reading and excited to go to the next paragraph. And it's really a simple walk through his history and what brought him to the United States and what got him into the cigar business in Cleveland and then in Tampa, and really an interesting story. So one of the things that we like to talk about, because everybody along the way, if they grow up in a cigar family, everybody still has the opportunity and the ability, at least in the United States, to kind of make their own way and carve their own path and start their own different thing. But so many people just continue to feel drawn to the family business, to the cigar business. So is that something you were always drawn to growing up? Was that you knew that you were going to be a part of the family business?
Absolutely. And back in the 60s, my mother took my brother and I to living in Tampa. I remember the first time that I really got it. Growing up, we moved to Tampa in 1954, and I was 3 years old. So now everyone knows how old I am, and I'm only 39 years old. But so my mother we were making 300,000 cigars a day, running two shifts. We were making two brands. One was called Cuesta Rey, made on these 1931 American Machine and Foundry hand-operated machines. We were making 40,000 Cuesta Rey a day, and we're making 260,000 Rigoletto Blackjacks, Rigoletto Palma Grandes. And our mother took my brother and me to see the factory. I remember my mother was very formal. She made us dress up to go to the factory, had to get a tie on and so forth. And I remember seeing the Rigoletto Palma Grandes and Cuesta Rey being made. And this was on a Friday. On Saturday, our parents drove us. I was 9 years old when I was in the factory. And we went to Miami, which we thought we were going to Los Angeles. This was before they had interstates, if you can believe it. And we stayed at a hotel called the Fontainebleau, which was a brand new hotel. And they were famous. They were the first hotel in the history of the world, probably, to have in the deep end, to have instead of having all pools are solid. They had in the deep end, they had a very thick, it went down 12 feet. It was a huge glass pane, and you could see everyone. It was such a cool deal. But so we're there we got there Saturday morning, and my father took my brother and I out to work with our salesman, and in Miami at the time. First stop we went into, since I know it's a long story, but first stop we went into, my father, my brother, and me, and we were there for 2 minutes, and somebody walked in, and he said, "Do you have a Rigoletto Palma Grande?" And so I saw him it was 69 cents for a pack of 5, and so the man put his dollar down, and that was when I had my aha moment, because I had just seen the cigar being made in our factory in Tampa. Here we were in Miami, which I thought was a million miles away, and something hit me in my head and my heart. At that point, I knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to sell cigars for our family company, and that was to be able to have an aha moment, knowing at 9 years old what you want to do the rest of your life was obviously life changing. And so here we are for many years later, having our company we're 120 today. This year, we're a 126-year-old company. We're the oldest cigar company in the United States. Grandpa JC started in 1895, and I remember him. We used to go to his house every Sunday for dinner. And Grandpa JC died in his office. He was 83 years old, and my dad took over. And Dad died in 2006. He was 90 years old and 12 weeks. And his heart stopped in my brother's office, literally. My wife and I and our two sons, we were at a YMCA camp in North Carolina. My brother called me up and said, look, our dad had a little episode and you may need to come home. And we just got in this YMCA camp. So we came home, and I knew that Dad was gone. And but they kept him alive, and coincidentally on a respirator. And now everyone, because of COVID, knows what that is. And Dad had a living will, and I got there, and he was not going to be. He had flatlined, but he's being kept alive. And so before he left us, he donated his. It was in his will to donate his any body part that could be used. He donated his retina. And that was the only part that could be used. And so I'm telling you this because our retirement program is basically we work till we drop dead. So we have no, just being facetious, we have a great 401k program, but we've had, you're talking about the book, Grandpa JC's book called Smoke Dreams. And Drew, my nephew, who's the fourth generation, he put that online. And there's another book, highly recommend, and Dad wrote a book when he was 80 years old, or had a book written about the first 100 years in the cigar family, in the cigar industry. And it's called Cigar Family. It's dedicated to the Carlos Fuente family. Of course, and Dad dedicated to his parents and his family as well. But you can see it on, it's people who read it love it. And of course, it's a little hard. It's like looking at your own children. Aren't they beautiful? But it's a great life stories in the book. And again, you go to jcnewman.com and you can read the book.
Yeah. And it's really great to have those resources out there. I applaud the family for having that on the website available to read, because I think there's something satisfying about sitting back with a premium cigar while smoking and enjoying that cigar, also reading up on the history of the family who made that cigar. There's something special about that.
While you're nestled into a plone of cigar tobacco.
Yes.
And no. Bobby, we were talking a little bit before the show about how important family is and some of the wonderful families in cigars. Clearly, the Newman family has been a pillar in cigars for, over 120 years now, which is incredible. I know that fact's not lost on you, but could you tell us a little bit about how important family is to you in the cigar industry?
Well, it's thank you. Great question, great statement. I think what makes the premium cigar, handmade cigar industry so great, and we all compete against each other. Our family are very active on the Cigar Rights of America, and who's on that? You had the Fuentes and Padron and Lido and Pete Johnson. Drew Estate was on there for a long time. Jeff Borshowitz was our first president of the Cigar Rights of America, and and what's happened over the years, just like to every other company in the United States and around the world, there've been a lot of mergers. A lot of people from Europe, Altadis, have bought brands. General Cigar, which is Scandinavic, they bought CAO, and these are all great companies. But there's something. But they have stockholders. Many of them are publicly traded, and when you have a family business, you don't have that type of. It's not like you're a publicly traded company. You don't have. You can make long-term decisions versus you don't have to please the stockholders. And during the cigar boom in 1992, many of our competitors and everyone in the industry it's a very close knit industry. We all compete fiercely on the streets, but when it comes to, especially with our battle, our 12-year battle with the FDA, we've gotten to know all of us, work together, walk the halls of Congress, calling on U.S. congressmen and senators, and to try to get this awful regulation off of our out of our life. Let me hang on once. I got a call from Nicaragua. I'm gonna. Yeah,
Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yep.
okay. No, it's, I just told him I'd call him back. It was our plant manager. He's just returning my call.
Okay.
From this afternoon. So, as you know, all these family businesses, they each they do their own thing, but it's because they're not publicly traded. They don't have or like Scandinavian Tobacco is been in the same family. They're based out of Denmark, but these smaller family companies like ourselves have we can make long-term decisions, and you cannot buy aged tobacco. You have to buy the tobacco and age it yourself. Of course, the longer you age tobacco, it's like bourbon or scotch. The longer you age it, the smoother it gets. And I'm smoking a cigar that the Yagua Connecticut broadleaf. This tobacco is 3 years old. The filler is 4 years old or more, and very, very smooth. We learned a great deal from my brother, Carlos Fuente Jr. and Carlos Fuente Sr., may he rest in peace. And my parents, I think you know that Arturo Fuente, they make all of our Dominican cigars, which are the Diamond Crown
Mm-hmm.
Classic, the Connecticut Shade, the Maximus, the Julius Caesar, the Black Diamond, La Unica Equestre. And our family, we sell all the Arturo Fuente to brick and mortar across the United States. And it's been a wonderful ride. We've been their partner. We've been partners with the Fuente family since 1986. So that's
35 years.
35 years. Yes.
Yeah.
And we had a leveraged buyout on February 14th, 1986. My father, Stanford, my brother Eric, and I bought all 14 of our relatives out. There's a whole chapter in the book Cigar Family.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and that's an interesting story, because when these were all family members, but at the time, from what I gathered from the story, there were basically, there were a small number of family members who really wanted to continue putting their hearts and souls into the cigar business, and then there were some family members who, not wishing them ill will by any stretch, but they just were not as invested personally in the cigar business.
Right.
So they were willing to sell their shares to like you said, to your father and you and your brother, and that really seemed to come at the same kind of time that you developed this great relationship with the Fuente family.
Right.
Which has become, like you said, 35 years. That relationship is widely known, even by I'll say casual cigar consumers. People know about the relationship between the Newmans and the Fuentes. It's widely known as maybe the most strong family relationship in the cigar business. So tell us about, back when things started happening with the Fuente family. What has that been like, developing that relationship over these years?
Oh, it's been a wonderful ride. If my father said this, and I will say it, we've said it in public many times, if I was down to my last dollar, I'd give the Fuente family 51 cents. It's the type of relationship. What happened after we had our leverage buyout in 1986, and 2 weeks after that, and again, there's a whole chapter of this in the book Cigar Family. Carlos Fuente Sr., who was we had a factory, and Carlito and Cynthia Fuente, they had a factory about 6 blocks into Ybor City, which is the cigar manufacturing area. Goes back to 1885 when Martinez Ybor brought the entire cigar industry from Key West to Tampa, and there were Martinez Ybor. He was instrumental in bringing the industry from Key West in 1885, and then 1886 there were between 150 and 200 cigar factories were built. You can imagine that between 1886 and 1910. Our factory, which is called El Reloj, because El Reloj means the clock, we have the tallest clock tower in the city, and the people would go to bed. People would wake up. If it's a Saturday, they would hear the bell go off every hour, and you could hear it all over Ybor City. So, but going back to our leveraged buyout, back in 2 weeks after leveraged buyout, Carlos Fuente Sr. came to us, and he said he wanted to quit making cigars in his Tampa factory, and ask us if we would make his cigars. And the brand was called Moya, Moya, and it was a bundle brand. We still make it. We make them every day, and so we said we'll do this for the. It was 3 million cigars, which was a lot for us at the time. And my father said, "We'll do this, but we'd like to get back into the hand cigar making business." And the only person my father trusted, and he knew Carlos Fuente since he met him in 1954. My father had a great feeling about the Fuente family, and I think everyone knows their history. The Fuentes, they had moved to Nicaragua, were burned out by the Sandinistas in the mid-70s, and no insurance, lost everything. Then they went to Honduras, and they had electrical fire, and they lost everything again, no insurance. And Carlos Fuente Sr., who was running the factory at the time in Nicaragua, came back to Tampa in 1980, and he started a brand new venture in the Dominican Republic. And 6 years later, we became their business partners. But my father said, "Look, we'll make these cigars, the Moya brand, but we'd like to get back in the hand cigar making business." And my father he gave the Fuentes a test. He didn't want to give them the Cuesta Rey brand. He said, we had an old brand called La Unica, which means in English means the one and only. And so my dad, very clever. At the time, bundles were not big sellers like they are today, but all the bundles back in the mid 80s, they were cigars that had either a blemish on the wrapper, they had a hole and it had been patched, and they were basically seconds. My dad's idea was to come out with a brand, the La Unica, called Dominican Primeros, which means Dominican first. And this is before the internet, before they had cell phones. We were able to leverage the story about, hey, American cigar consumer, try the La Unica, and it was Connecticut. Carlos Fuente Sr. picked out the four original sizes, and he said, and at the time, Connecticut shade, like it is today, the Connecticut wrapper first, and the Connecticut seed grown in Ecuador, those were some of the most popular wrappers. So we came out with the La Unica Connecticut shade, and then we had the Maduro version, was Connecticut broadleaf, and the thing took off. And this was 1986. By 1988, my father, we were giving Dad, said, "Dad, we got to quit making Cuesta Rey in Tampa on these old 1930 hand-operated machines. Carlos Fuente Sr. and Jr. said, "Hey, we can make these cigars for you." And so again, this was 6 years before this. Well, 1988 was 4 years before the cigar boom, and so we came out with Cuesta Rey, and talk about a marketing. Everyone knew Cuesta Rey. It was a number back in the when my father bought the Cuesta Rey brand. When Grandpa JC died in 1958, 1959, my dad bought the brand. Our father Stanford bought Cuesta Ray from the Cuesta families. It was ancient Carl Cuesta. They had daughters who were not interested in the business. The industry was basically flat or going down, and we didn't have a pot to pee in financially. So my dad was, again, a very smart man, clever, a wonderful human being. And I said, Dad, how did you pay for it? And it's not in the book, but what he did is that he told the Cuesta family, we will pay you out over 5 years. It's like $3 million, which is a lot of money back then, back in the late 50s. And he said, we'll pay you $50 per 1,000 cigars. And also the Cuesta Ray brand, they had something that we didn't. Our brands at the time were Rigoletto and Student Prince. And it was very strong in the Midwest. We're from Cleveland. It was strong in the Midwest, but Cuesta Ray had distributors coast to coast. This was before they had the traditional tobacconist, and most of the cigars were sold through distributors. And overnight, we ended up with distributors, over 200 distributors coast to coast. And so we were able to take the Cuesta Ray brand. At the time, this is interesting, we bought it. It was called a clear Havana cigar. The wrapper, binder, and filler was all Cuban. And again, at the time, there were 10 large factories going strong in Tampa, making over 500 million cigars. If you can imagine that. Tampa made more cigars than any place else in the world. And one of the reasons Grandpa JC moved us to Tampa was like what wine is to Napa Valley or cars used to be to Detroit, because before we had imported cars. Tampa was like what Mickey Mouse is to Disney. And so we came in as the last of the last cigar manufacturer from that era. And what happened, here we are, 1959, we got Cuesta Ray, and early 1962, John F. Kennedy put in an embargo on on Cuban tobacco, anything coming from Cuba, rum, sugar, you name it, any commodity. And it broke the back of the Tampa cigar industry, and all that was left. So what happened, companies like Garcia Vega, which is now we call it a drugstore cigar or convenience store cigar, but they at one time it was a fine handmade cigar. And they moved to Philadelphia, and they ended up merging with Phillies, who ended up merging with Hava Tampa. And that noise you heard is one of our dogs in the background. And anyway, all right, Coffee, right here. Coffee.
We love when dogs make guest appearances on the show.
Oh my God! And she's from Southeastern Guide Dogs, which is I'll tell you that story too in this hour and 20 minutes. So we got with our going back to our leveraged buyout. So we started in 1986, and with La Unica, it took off. Then in 1988, we got Cuesta Ray. We went from a made on a hand-operated long filler cigar machines to completely handmade by the Fuente family. People love Cuesta Ray, but they wanted them handmade, and we didn't have a hand cigar making factory, and we started. Arturo Fuente, they did not have any salesmen. They had brokers. We had a large sales force, great sales force. At the time, we had 40 salesmen when we bought Cuesta Ray, and but we didn't have enough to sell. And here comes the first year we started with Arturo Fuente. We opened, and I still have the record of everyone. We opened up 501 new accounts that Fuente had never been into. And I remember we used to have monthly lunches with the Fuentes. It's usually with Carlos Fuentes Sr. and Junior, but every couple months. And it was truly a marriage made in heaven, because there's a lot of synergies where 2 + 2 = 5. And so it's been a wonderful ride. They made us better, and I like to think we made them better as well. It's been a relationship.
Absolutely. And it's so funny to hear you say that, to talk about that year that along with, your partnership, that suddenly Fuente had 501 new accounts. And it's funny to hear that, because it sounds in today's world, in 2021, when cigar smokers hear the brand name of Arturo Fuente, when cigar smokers hear brand names like Brick House and Diamond Crown and names like that, you're hard pressed to find a cigar shop anywhere in the United States that doesn't have Arturo Fuente cigars on the shelf, that doesn't have Brick House on the shelf, that doesn't have Diamond Crown on the shelf. It's and it's funny to listen back to the stories from just those few years, that decade before the cigar boom hit,
Right.
to think about the Fuente being an up and coming, growing new family brand,
Right.
which they were not new at all. Carlos Fuente Sr. had been making cigars for decades, and then his father before him and his father before. It's just amazing to hear about that. I also want, Garrett's got something.
I do.
Yeah.
So Bobby, if you could tell us about 1986 to 1988, was this, a lot of moving parts within JC Newman at that time. What was your role? What did you do, and what did you observe during that time?
I tell you, this is my 17th podcast, because that's especially last year. It's all we did were podcasts because people couldn't leave, and I obviously we're Matt and Garrett. You both are good talkers, and we're all good. There's a lot of good talkers in our industry, and it's full of stories. But no, my role with the company was a sales manager. I ran the sales, and it was invigorating. It was tough. The cigar industry was. People have short memories. Listen, a lot of people forgot about 9/11, and but at the time the industry was going down. There were just under 100 million cigars being imported in the United States. And of course, during the cigar boom, it went up to over 500 million. In 1997, when the supply and demand curve crossed, that's when people couldn't get enough cigars, and then when the demand took a little dip, and that's when the number of imports went down to 300 million almost overnight. But again, we went from 100 million to 300 million. That was left. Today, it's about 330 million cigars, and it's we've been under we've been battling the FDA as an industry, and very proud of the job that our family has done, along with the Fuentes and others. We feel like we've been at the tip of the spear of this 12-year battle. When President Obama came in, the first bill he passed in 2009 was called the Family Tobacco Prevention Act. It was to regulate cigarettes, roll your own, and smokeless tobacco. And I know this is a public forum, but if you smoke cigarettes, they're highly addicting, and it's not a question if you'll get lung cancer, it's when you'll get lung cancer. And as I think the FDA came out in 2017. They reported in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is arguably the most prestigious cigar medical journal in the world. They came out, the FDA, with this, and Drew, my nephew, who's 39 years old, who's the fourth generation. It's just Eric and me, my brother and me, and we have a fourth generation. And they're in now. But he found it. He was the only one in the industry. He found the article, and in that article, it also talked about how the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, again, 2017, the Center for Disease Control said that they conclude the average American cigar smoker smokes 1.7 handmade cigars a month, and it will not affect mortality. So we took that information. We went to see Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who was one of the FDA commissioners under the Trump regime. We went to see him, and he was very pro-cigar, but there are people at the FDA that they don't want to have any tobacco, as we all know. And we've been, again, fighting this. We've had lawsuits against the FDA. We've won 3 of them. And So we spend more time fighting the FDA sometimes than selling our own cigars. But
Yeah.
we're still bullish getting this app, getting this 800-pound gorilla off our backs, because everyone in the industry, we're regulated like cigarettes, and we're paying user fees. Our little company, we're paying about $3,500 a day in user fees, and it's over $1 million a year. We're not wham, but we can live with the user fees, but the substantial equivalent is very challenging. And what that is that the FDA said any cigar, if you come out with a new cigar, it has to be equivalent size and shape to what you, Mr. Manufacturer, had in 2007. And so that's been a heck of a challenge. And again, this is a 12-year story told in a couple minutes, and we're still fighting it.
Yeah, and it's an important fight, and companies like JC Newman, companies like Fuente, and so many others that have put time and resources and effort into the regulatory fight. You know, it's important for all of us as cigar smokers. We've talked about it so many times on the show that we encourage people to get involved with their and we even had a local Minnesota member of the House of Representatives along with some PCA people on the show a few weeks ago and talked about that. And it's really important for us to get involved with that as cigar consumers and even non-cigar consumers, just so that the lawmakers are constantly made aware and reminded over and over again until they can't possibly forget the fact that these products are completely different than cigarettes,
Right.
and they need to be regarded in a different way. But I actually did want to talk about also the fact that right now Garrett and I are smoking the new size
The
of
American.
the new Double Robusto.
I hope you're
and thank
enjoying
you so
it,
much.
Matt and
Yeah,
Garrett.
very much. And that's one of those cigars that we've talked about it before, but it's such a fun story, and it's such an interesting story because when we talk about cigars and the United States, you know, even with, you know, your grandfather starting out, you know, in 1895, and one of the most interesting things I've found over the years is learning about how pretty much every town in the United States, when you go back to the late 1800s and before, even into, you know, the 1920s and 30s, every town in America had a cigar factory.
Correct.
At one point, I think it said at the time Julius Caesar Newman started rolling cigars in Cleveland, there were 40,000 officially registered cigar factories in the United States. 40,000 registered cigar factories in the United States, and now there are what, 2, 3?
Yeah, about that, yes. And the reason we know this, that there were that many cigar manufacturers, is because in 1863, Abraham Lincoln had an idea that the North was going bankrupt fighting the South in the Civil War. So he came up with he was the first president to come up with an idea. Hey, let's put an excise tax on a commodity that happens to be 80% of American males use, called cigars. And it took him 5 years to get it. It was 1868. So a little history. The first excise tax was put on cigars. It was 1 penny for every box of 50 cigars. You had to go to the post office and you buy the tax stamps. So back then, a lot of the boxes were 100, 200 count. And so if it was a 200 count box, you'd spend 4 cents. You go to the post office and you glue these stamps at the bottom of your boxes. You can buy these stamps on eBay and with the boxes. And so that's the reason why we know. There's a whole. This is all transparent conversation, obviously, and so that's why we know that there were that many manufacturers. For example, JC started in 1895. There there were over 300 cigar manufacturers in Cleveland. And by 1953, we were the last one. And Grandpa JC was he said, we got to get to Tampa. Tampa, if we're going to stay in the cigar business, first of all, we were making nickel cigars back then. And our expensive ones were 10 cents. And the real expensive ones were two for 25 cents. And so that's how we ended up in Tampa. And it's
and this project here, the American, it's so unique in today's market because it's literally everything. I mean, everything you see, every leaf of tobacco is from the United States. They're rolled in the United States. The bands are made and printed in the United States. The boxes are made in the everything. And that's such a unique project in today's market. Tell us what were the challenges of putting a product like this to market, and how has the response been? Because it's been a couple of years on the market now. So how's the response been?
It's been overwhelming. It was Eric's son, my brother. Drew's idea was, Drew is an attorney. He went to American Law School. He went to Williams College up in northwestern Massachusetts. And when Drew got out of law school, he went to work for one of the 13 commissioners of the District of Columbia, and Drew became a regulator, which has been a great help to us. He's now on the board of Cigar Rights of America. But he had an idea. He told us, he said, I want to renovate the factory, El Reloj, we have in Tampa. It's 110,000 square feet. And I want to open this renovation. Let's open the factory. We had a small museum. So let's have a 3-story museum in the front of the factory, from the basement all the way. Actually, it's really 4 stories. Let's put a movie theater in there so people can come and visit and read about or watch videos. We have like 23 videos on 2 movie screens, and to hear, so we can educate people that come to Tampa about the history of cigars, Ybor City, how the industry was started. Talks a lot about the Fuente family, our relationship with them. They've been around since 1912. And then Drew said, I want to start making handmade cigars in our factory in Tampa. And his father said, that's the worst idea I ever heard, because labor in the United States is 8 times what it is in Nicaragua. But he said, if you want to do that, if you want to spend your inheritance, we'll do it. And we did. And so we had this massive restoration, and kind of build it and they will come, like Field of Dreams. And we opened the factory in the renovated cigar factory at worst time in the world. It was last year right in COVID, and there was no one. Everyone knows about COVID. What people were afraid to come, and now we're seeing 100 visitors a day. So we build out the museum, and we turned the factory, and we're making 65,000 cigars a day on these hand-operated machines, American Machine and Foundry. These machines were built in 1931. People think they're replicas, and we put a hand cigar making factory on the 3rd floor. So Drew said his idea was the first factory out of the El Reloj factory in 1910 was called the American. So Drew did his homework, and he also taught us something, 10 years ago. I didn't pay much attention. My sons are 23 and 27. And he told us all about the millennials. Drew was living at the time in New York City, and he's moving to Tampa. He bought a house in Tampa, got married. He's got a little boy named William Stanford Newman. But Drew's idea was, let's make a cigar, 3rd floor. Actually, I keep saying all the factories in Tampa either had 3 or 4 floors. So only basements that we know of in the state of Florida are in these old cigar factories. And again, the factory we're in is the last working cigar factory in the United States. And you're crazy to make handmade cigars in the United States. But Drew's idea. I'm going to come out. The American will be the first cigar made in maybe ever in America with 100% American grown tobacco. The wrapper, and I didn't know that Jeff, he had the relationship with Jeff Borshowitz. He also is our brother. So we buy all Jeff. We couldn't have done this without Jeff Borshowitz because we use the Florida Sun Grown. We buy his entire crop, bring it to our factory, Pensa, which stands for Puros de Esteli Incorporated, and that's the English translation for Pensa, Puros de Esteli SA, which means incorporated. Yeah. So the wrapper, Florida Sun Grown, the binders, Connecticut broadleaf. The biggest challenge though was no one was growing long filler tobacco. So we went to the Amish, and which was ironic because, as you know, the Amish, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't use electricity, they don't use tractors. They use horses or mules to pull the plows. When you go to when you, as an American, when you go to see their operation, the Amish and the Mennonites, it's like stepping back 200 years. You cannot believe it. If you drive through there in Pennsylvania, and they're spread out in Ohio as well. If you drive through at night, you think there's been a power outage, like a hurricane went through, because all the farmhouses they're all dark, they're all black. There's no electricity. Yeah. And so the challenge. So we had the Amish grow a crop, and we aged it, and the tobacco was too thick; it wouldn't burn right. So we switched to the Mennonites, and they grew a little different seed. The tobacco was thinner; it burned perfectly. And you were talking about Matt, about the components of the whole product. Not only is it 100% grown American tobacco, boxes, the bands, the labels that you said, the ink, the nails that go into the box, everything is made in America. And this was Drew's idea, even before Trump even got into office. And so we have 3 hand cigar makers. We're going to add another 5. So we only make 300 Americans per day, and that's for the world. So we've got about maybe 80 tobacconists, and it's sold because it's so oversold. We have to sell it on an allocated basis.
Yeah, it's really not only is it the most unique project that I've seen from the cigar business in a decade, I'd say. I encourage every cigar smoker to, if you have not tried the American yet, to go out and smoke it, because it is unlike anything else you'll smoke. It really does have very unique flavor and aroma properties that you don't get from other cigars. There's this interesting kind of earthy quality to the aroma, but it's also,
there's a sweetness
to it also, and it's available in sizes that most American cigar consumers are really excited about, especially this new double Robusto. This is a size that American cigar consumers are absolutely loving right now, and I think it's a great project. I think it's a great way to not only give people a really unique cigar to smoke, I think it's also a way to give people a sort of a portal to a history lesson, because by smoking this cigar, they can go on jcnewman.com. They can learn the story about it. They can learn the story about the whole company going all the way back to 1895, and that's one of the coolest parts about the premium cigar business is the history. And for people to be able to smoke this cigar that literally gives them an opportunity to take a walk back through history. And we've talked about this on the show before. We encourage people, whenever they're smoking a cigar, guys, when you go out and you pick up one of these Americans and you smoke it, take the time to go on your phone or on your computer and go learn about the company that made it. And that goes for any cigar in your humidor, any cigar that you pick up from a shop. it doesn't take any effort at all. Take 2 minutes while you're smoking that cigar and go on the website and learn about the company that made it, because there's always going to be a great story behind it, and we'll become better members of the cigar consumer community if we do that, you know.
Yeah, and if you can't find it, tune into How About That Cigar, and chances are we've talked to that company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Matt and Garrett, kudos to you. And the great irony, we export to 82 countries, and we have a bonded warehouse in Europe, so we can, instead of our importers waiting 6, 8, 12 weeks to get a direct shipment from the Dominican or from Pensa, Nicaragua. So now when someone wants, if they want 5 boxes, they just email, excuse me, or contact our bonded warehouse. Actually, they send us the orders in Tampa, and we send the orders to our bonded warehouse in Nicaragua, and we can ship it. We ship it within 24 hours. We can turn that merchandise, and that has helped enormously. We have I was getting ready to tell you the story too. Our VP of Sales and Marketing, Crystal Lastra, and our export administrator, Billy McGirt, a young woman. We have during COVID we started, because we couldn't travel, so we started meeting by. No one ever heard of Zoom. We have Zoom calls every quarter with our top 10 importers. What's interesting, I've been going to Europe personally since 1970. What saved our company after the Cuban embargo was my father was the first American to bring Cameroon tobacco into the United States. And I think it saved the Fuente family too. No one ever heard of Let me tell you, Dad brought it in the country, 1965. No one had ever heard of Cameroon, Africa. No one could spell it, pronounce it, had no idea where it was. And it really, again, we read it because all the Tampa cigar manufacturers, everyone had a 2 to 2.5 year supply of Cuban tobacco. The embargo was in 62, so by 1965, everyone was out. We still have 1 bale of tobacco, of Cuban tobacco, long filler from the 1958 Piñor del Rio. And when you guys come down, we'll show you the bale, and it is
wow.
It is precious.
And,
yeah. The reason my father saved 1 bale, Garcia Vega was a premium cigar maker, and they in Tampa before they moved out to Philadelphia, and they used to advertise, yes, we still have Havana. So people used to ask my father, Stanford, do you have any Cuban tobacco left? He said, sure, of course we do. And so we're still sitting on that bale of tobacco.
Nice. I love that. That's very cool. So, you know, we talked about the Agua project, and we've also, Garrett and I have these Brick House cigars, you know, with us as well. It's kind of a regular, but there are so many brands, you know, whether it's the Dominican made, whether it's the ones, you know, made here in the States. What is the one that you, just in your everyday cigar enjoyment, is there one that you would say right now, at least, you're reaching for more than any other JC Newman cigar?
Absolutely. And before I answer, I'll just tell you a 30-second story. The first cigar dinner I ever did in my life was with Carlos Fuente in 1988. And we did it in Sarasota. There were about 50 people down in Sarasota. And somebody asked Carlito, he said, Mr. Fuente, what's your favorite cigar? Carlito thought about it, and he gave the best answer I ever heard. He said, how can you choose among your children? And but since you asked that, no, my favorite cigar that we make, and I obviously love them all. They have different nuances, but the Diamond Crown Julius Caesar is my favorite, and it's just it's a everything in there is that all the tobacco has been aged at least 5 years, and it is our Diamond Crown business is up over 50% in units, and you come down we are out of every single size of Diamond Crown Julius Caesar. We're out of most of the Diamond Crown, and when I go out, I used to travel 40 weeks a year for 40 years up until COVID, and now I'm starting to get out again, and starting to travel as well, and it's because COVID was the worst thing that happened to the United States and the world. But COVID, there have been winners and losers in COVID, and everyone knows this. Who's listening to this podcast, and because people are staying home, they're smoking more and they're drinking more. So the alcohol, the whiskey business has been, and the premium cigar business has been huge.
Cheers.
And amen. Hey. Let me give you a toast.
Here we go. Cheers. Yeah, the consumables, like you said, cigars, alcohol, consumption has gone up a lot. And I know so many people, myself included, Garrett included, that, we went from 2 cigars a day to 5 cigars a day, 6, 7 cigars a day.
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody we know is in that same boat.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, this I think this is number 5 for me today. So it's just the way it is,
And
yes, sir.
No, I was gonna move on with a question here, wondering if you could tell us about the origins of in your history with the Toast Across America.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. We have 2 very powerful foundations that are changing the world. Eric, my brother, and Carlito, when Dad was alive, the father and brother would go down to the Dominican about every other month, and around 2000, 2001. My brother Eric and Carlito were at Chateau de la Fuente, and they saw in the stream running through there, they saw these children, 7, 8 years old, at 11 o'clock in the morning playing in the stream, barefoot. All of them had distended bellies, and because the water was bad. And they had one school there, it looked like Little House on the Prairie, and they would put all the 1st through the 6th graders in, and there was a one light bulb hanging from on a wire. They put all the 1st through 6th graders. They learned nothing, and so the first thing my brother and Carlito realized, we have to take care of the people. So my brother and I and my dad are Rotarians, and we were able to get a lot of money in Rotary grants from Rotary International, and we drilled deep water wells around Banao, where Chateau de la Fuente is. Very, very poor area. It's between Santo Domingo and Santiago, and we built our own school, and we bought 22 acres, and people in America, most Americans, majority appreciate the United States, but we bought the property. We didn't know it was a flood zone, and until we signed on it, and we getting ready to build, and there were floods every time it rained. So we spent $200,000. We had to put in French drains, so when it would rain, if you know what a French drain is, the pipe has a hole and so forth. So that was our first challenge. So in 2003, 2004, we opened up the school. It was kindergarten through 8th grade. Life was great. We paid for it. And this is before Toast Across America. And a month after we opened the school, Carlos Fuente, Carlito, he called my brother. He said, Eric, we have a problem. Eric said, how can we have, with the school, how can we have a problem? The kids there, they get 2 hot meals a day. They get a uniform. They get brand new shoes. A lot of them didn't even own shoes. The area was so poor, they didn't have the people down there couldn't even afford outhouses. And the Dominican people are such wonderful, happy people. You couldn't believe And most Americans have been to developing countries. Even if you go to Mexico, you go out to the hinterlands, and you'll see a lot of very, very poor people. So, and the homes surrounding Banao, they had so much pride. You'd see women sweeping the floor. The floors were dirt floors. They're using a palm frond. And our goal was to break the chains of poverty, educate these kids. And so Carlito calls my brother a month after we opened and said, got a problem. The problem was that the eighth graders were complaining they had no place to go. So Eric and Carlito, they borrowed $1 million from the Bank of Tampa, and we built a high school. And so the eighth graders would have some place to go, and through connections with different foundations across America and other friends of ours in Tampa, corporations, the Outback folks, very, very generous. They built us a kitchen. Outback Steakhouse was started in Tampa, and we were able to gather enough funds to build a medical clinic at Cigar Family. And until we got there, no one had ever seen a toothbrush. We now have 2 dentists coming in 3 days a week. And if you believe in the Bible, things go in cycles. And there was a little 8-year-old boy when we started. He is now our medical director at Cigar Family. And when you do things for the right reasons, you can do a lot of great things. And so we have this beautiful medical clinic, and we have through connections we sent down toothbrushes. I mean, we sent down 10,000 toothbrushes as soon as we got dentists in there, and so they could teach people how to use a toothbrush. You can imagine that. And here we are, 2021, and Carlos Fuente, very humble, incredible. He's a cross between Elon Musk and Thomas Edison. A company called Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. Everyone's heard of LVMH. They bought, 2 years ago, they bought Tiffany's. Anyway, they have a watch company and that I had never heard of. And their watches are, they sell for around $30,000. And if my wife bought that, I would kill her. And they came to Carlito and said, look, we want to come out with a limited line of watches and with the FFOX name, and we'll give you royalty. So Carlito thought about it, and he said, okay, I'll do that, but I want all the money to come to the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. So we end up with about $400,000, and we built a tech school, and we just graduated our first class of nurses. There are no nursing schools within 50 miles, 100 miles radius, and because we had these extra funds. So in the meantime, it cost us $850,000 to keep the school going. It's around 462 to 478 from preschool to 12th grade. So I know it's a long answer about the Toast Across America, but we came up with the idea. Let's come out with we need this money. How are we going to get it? We can't depend on foundations and private donors, although we have a lot of Cigar Family members that have given money. But we came up with the idea, let's come out with 2 cigars that are not commercially available. We'll put them in like a little coffin box, sell it for $50 to the retailers, and they will sell it. We'll ask them to not make any money, and they sell it for $50, and they send us the money. So we've been selling 10 to 11,000 of these toast packs. So if you multiply 10,000 times $50, that's $500,000. And so we've been funding the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation and the school through the Toast Across America. It's one of the few. Well, it's the only foundation I ever heard of. If an American gives $1, all 100 cents goes to the mission. And our family and the Fuente family pay the administrative costs, which are attorneys, the marketing, and the accounting. And it's we've raised over $24 million, and it's all going back into the school. The Carlito's dream was, he's very close to Arturo Sandoval, who's won several Grammys. They made a movie about him. He came from Cuba with nothing, like everyone else after the embargo, and so we're just breaking ground now for a music school, and so we want to give these children an opportunity. You know, in America, we have such great opportunities. If you want to work, you can be very successful in America, but there are not opportunities in these developing or third world countries. And it's been an incredible ride, and success begets success. Mm-hmm. And again, if you look at our 990, and everybody, if you have there's millions of nonprofits in America, and again, we're the only one I know of that we're again 100% of your contribution goes right back to the mission.
Well, and it's something that we haven't talked about it extensively on the show, but we do say, we have said a couple times, anytime you're at a cigar shop and you see that they have those Toast Across America packs on the shelf, buy one of those, because not only are you going to get two phenomenal cigars, you're going to be giving somebody a chance. And it's like Carlito said when Carlito was on our show, and he said, it's not about the cigars, it's about the people.
Absolutely. And that company, that watch company, is called Hublot. And I had never heard of it. And so they say, owned by Louis Vuitton, have been very, very generous. And this continues. They keep been very successful with the limited putting the FFOX name on these watches. And so we keep getting monies for it, and it helps subsidize our budget at Cigar Family.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to thank you. We want to thank you for giving, and that foundation I know means the world to so many young people that we can't even imagine. The conditions that they grow up with, and you're making that just infinitely better. And so I echo what Matt says. Anybody watching or listening that sees that Toast Across America pack and think $50 for two cigars, number one, those are exclusive sizes in the Opus X and Julius Caesar, and they are fantastic cigars. Not only that, but all $50 goes to really helping an amazing cause. So
well, it's that, and the other nonprofit that I'll tell you about in a minute. It's been the most rewarding ride. It's been so rewarding to see these kids again, to see this 8-year-old little boy who's now, his name is Nelson, and who's now running. He's our medical director, and so we serve not only to the students and the staff, but we serve the whole community of 5,000 people, and it's been so rewarding to see these people getting up on their feet. We started a program. There are no like these developing countries. They have socialized medicine down there, which you could wait years to get a surgery just for a simple knee surgery, and so we had one of the where my kids went to local prep school here in Tampa. One of the mothers was doing a program she was going to Africa every year to make eyeglasses. So she helped us get this thing started. We're now in year 12. So every February we go down with volunteer ophthalmologists, optometrists. We bring 2,000 pairs of distance glasses, different strengths, reading glasses, sunglasses, eye drops, and we probably my favorite story is a man came in, and diabetes is bad down there, and this 85-year-old man came in, and he had lost both of his legs because of diabetes, he was complaining to us he couldn't read his Bible, and so we fixed him and gave him a very, very strong glasses what he needed, and I mean he was in tears. We all were in tears. He came with his Bible, and I mean that was, you talk about an aha moment, a biblical moment. And listen, that's why we do. Americans are the most generous in the history of the world. Americans are the most generous people. And it's funny, we've been telling me my first trip to Europe was my brother and I went in 1970 to the Cameroon tobacco auction, and the Europe, nowhere outside of America do people have the feeling of to give back like we do as Americans. And I think that's why God has shed his grace on thee, and I hope he will continue to do so with what's happening in America. We could use his help.
Yeah, I hope that generosity continues from people all over, and continuing to, because there are a lot of people in these areas that grow tobacco, that have cigar factories, and unfortunately these areas have been decimated by poverty going back long before, even in many cases long before cigars were even a thought in some of these areas. But there's also, you had mentioned another charitable cause, and part of that is if I'm getting the name of it right, is the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. And is that something, I know that's something Fuentes are very deeply involved in. Is that something that the Newman family is also deeply involved in?
Absolutely. Yeah. My father, my brother, Eric, and Carlito started that along with Drew. In fact, the way it started, when Drew was 14 years old in the early 90s, he came to me and to Eric, and my kids call my Eric Uncle Eric. But Drew in the early 90s, he said, Uncle Bobby, again, this is the early 90s. He said, Uncle Bobby, we need a website. I said, Drew, that's a great idea. What's a website? No one had ever heard of a website.
Yeah.
And, so Drew's idea, here he was, underage. I hope but I can defend it if we're called upon into Congress or FDA. But his idea was, let's start this cigarfamily.com and let's have a chat room, because there's so many people are interested in talking to each other about cigars, and it became the largest chat room where cigar consumers all over the world could talk to each other. And it got so popular that these consumers, they wanted to meet each other. So we started having conventions in Tampa, and actually we went through probably maybe 20 years of doing this, and of having people come down. Then we start bringing people to the Dominican Republic, and it's been a wonderful ride with this. The other one you saw these dogs here, and we started a program I'm on the board of Southeastern Guide Dogs, the only guide and service dog school in the United States, in Southeastern United States. And again, everything in my life has great things have happened. I've always been around cigars. And in 2004, 17 years ago, right? Is my math right? I got a call from Central Cigar in St. Petersburg. They said, one of your customers, he smokes Cuesta Rey and Arturo Fuente. He was in a terrible IED incident, and we wanted you to know that. And I didn't know him. His name was Corporal Michael Jernigan, 25-year-old Marine. Michael Jernigan from St. Petersburg, Florida. He became the first American serviceman to lose both eyes in the global war on terror. He was riding in a Humvee. He and his group, Michael Jernigan, thank God, it saved his life. He was riding he was riding in the passenger seat, but happened to be in the machine gun turret, and this Humvee rolled over two captured 155 millimeter howitzer shells.
Mm.
When they rolled it, it went off and it killed the driver. And Michael Jernigan, he lost his whole forehead. It took his eyes literally off of him. He became the first American to lose both eyes in the global war on terror. And he and I ended up starting a program called Pause for Patriots back in 2006. And today, it's we supply to veterans across all 50 states for free. If you want a guide dog, a service dog, a Gold Star family dog, which you know a Gold Star family is, I think you know what that is. So we started this program, and we've given out over to veterans over 250 service dogs, about 25 Gold Star dogs, and hundreds of emotional support dogs, facility dogs. We have them spread out across America. We're at Walter Reed. Great story. 2008, I got a call from in Tampa. SOCOM, which is the United States Special Operations Command, is based out of MacDill Air Force, about 5 minutes south of where I'm talking to you in Tampa. In Central Command, CENTCOM, which the entire global war on terror is being fought out of 5 miles from our house. So Special Operations SOCOM called me and said, hey, we've got a young Navy SEAL that's in dire need of a service dog. I said, no problem. What's his name? His name was Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor from the movie, the book. And so he was our first, I guess, famous, if you will, veteran. And he made the mistake. He said, if you ever need anything, call me. And in fact, he got a great dog named Rigby. He ended up on 60 Minutes with his dog. And in fact, his dog just died 3 weeks ago. We're going to get him a new dog. It takes 2 years and $70,000 to train these animals, and they're given away for free. And so we started a fundraiser in our factory called Havana Nights. And this was our first one was in 2015. I called Marcus and asked him if he would be our speaker. He said, of course. And we raised about $260,000. And incredible speaker. Marcus Luttrell introduced us to Taya Kyle, Chris Kyle's widow. You've seen the movie American Sniper.
Yeah.
So I met my wife Meredith, and I met Taya, Chris Kyle's widow, and it was a big thing. We don't have enough dogs for all the veterans, much less their widows, but we made the right decision, and we got her a service dog. And she said, if you ever need anything, call me. So she became our second speaker. And so this is how this thing has evolved. And it's if you go to Walter Reed, we have 3 of our dogs there right now. We got them spread out in VA hospitals across America. And that too has been so rewarding, and we're very, very proud of what has happened. So we've had a fascinating run with these 2 nonprofits.
No, that's great.
That is awesome.
I love it. So is it?
I think so.
Is it time?
I think it's time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for this week's Numero de los Muertos. And as always, you know that Numero de los Muertos is brought to us by our friends at Smoke Inn. All right, Numero de los Muertos brought to us by Smoke Inn. Garrett, what do you have for us this week?
All right. So for those who are new to the show, Numero de los Muertos is like a 20 questions where I give a number, and it's up to our guest, Matt, and our viewers to guess how these people die. So on average, over the last 20 years, 200 people die globally from this.
Per year.
per year.
Okay, so viewers, put your guesses in the comments. Bobby and we're going to guess along. We're going to basically play yes or no 20 questions with Garrett here to try. So over the last 20 years, on average, 200 people a year have died from this.
Correct.
Okay, so now we can jump in. Is it globally?
Globally.
Okay, all over the world. All right,
It is not drowning.
are they disease related deaths?
It is disease related.
Ooh, okay. So we're starting off on a good on a yes.
It is not COVID-19.
Yeah, it hasn't been around 20 years.
Not the flu. Not malaria. No Q. Nope.
Bobby, what do you think? You have any guesses globally?
Well, before you said disease, I was going to say people falling, getting out of bathtubs. But
That would be a good one to do.
That would be a good one to do.
But that's not. Globally, it's disease related.
It's disease related.
ooh,
Is it a disease that most developed countries vaccinate for?
No.
No.
let me ask you this: is there a cure for the disease, or that is there? If you have this disease, is there an easy cure?
Nope. Either you survive or you don't. There's some treatments, but there's not like the golden shot. It is not drugs. It is not polio. I think you mean polio.
I think you mean polio, but
Right.
It's not polio.
Yeah, because there is a vaccine for polio, thank God.
Correct.
Is it a bloodborne disease?
It is not. And it is not AIDS.
Is it a sexually transmitted disease?
It is not.
No.
It is not scurvy.
Q, you need to learn how to spell and or type before you put comments in. No, I'm joking. I'm messing with you.
Or not drink while watching our show. It's not rabies.
I think that was an answer once, wasn't it?
I did rabies.
I think rabies was on the show. We did that as one of the categories once.
Garrett, has it been around for centuries?
It has.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because 200 people a year is very, very low, especially globally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is it something that cats give you if they bite you?
Oh, the cat scratch fever.
Or something similar
or
to that.
something similar. It is not.
Is that having to do with animals?
Most of the time, yes.
All right. How about is it from bats? Is people dying from bat bites?
No.
That's a good one, though.
That is a good one.
Are the victims typically adults, children, or both?
Yeah. Yep.
Doesn't matter.
Not discriminate.
Okay.
Okay. First clue.
Let's get a clue. Let's get a hint.
The last outbreak in the United States was in Los Angeles in 1928.
Oh my God.
1928.
That's before Legionnaire's disease started. God. But could you make it any harder? My God, Garrett.
Is it rickets?
No. First recorded case was in the 14th century.
My God.
And it's not scurvy.
It is not scurvy.
Ooh.
Yeah, because
It is not influenza. It is not rubella. These are all things that we have vaccines for. So there's no vaccine for this.
is it? What do they call it? Whooping cough.
Ooh, that's a good guess, but no.
Is it a respiratory condition?
No, it is not.
It's not a
Oh
respiratory
my
condition.
gosh, I can't believe we have to give the win to Quentin.
Did he get it?
He did.
Is that it? Bubonic plague.
It is the bubonic plague.
Wow. It's still around?
I know. So
Garrett. Wow.
the bubonic plague is still around. It has not been
Wow.
eradicated. And in fact, it's still even active in the United States. It is very rare, but it is mostly transmitted through either a rat or a rabbit who carry the disease, and then flies that are feeding on the carcasses come in contact with people.
Wow. That's crazy.
But globally, it still happens, and there's still little outbreaks that happen throughout the
And
the world.
And thankfully, although we don't, we want the number to be zero, but 200, 200 per year globally that's a very low number. So that could be way. That is crazy to think that, that's like a storybook. That's
Right.
like it's one of those things you hear about in, old movies and
So I'm
reading history.
I'm going to give you the breakdown of my research on this. I wanted to find out how many people die as a result of rats carrying disease, and that was impossible to. There's no study. The CDC doesn't carry anything. There's specific little diseases that rats carry that can obviously cause people to die, but rats in general. So, but that brought me to the bubonic plague is one of the things that they carry, and people catch in this very weird way. Originally, I wanted to try and find out how many people have died from asteroids.
Asteroids.
Wow.
There has been 0 confirmed cases of people dying from asteroids, or actually anything falling on people from space.
There's 0 recorded.
0.
Wow, that's amazing to think.
I know, and there's been like so many near misses. NASA has this database of I forgot the acronym of all of these things that fall and have hit people, have gone through people's homes, destroyed cars, but there's never been a documented case of anything falling from space and killing people.
Well,
but they estimate in the history of the world, on average, 91 people should die from something, but those are like.
Do you remember what the number was of as far as how many items touch down on Earth?
It's about 20 a year.
20. Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Crazy. Good times. Good times.
Quentin, that explains a lot.
Maybe that's where Quentin came from. He fell to Earth from space.
Yeah.
Is that where he came from?
Yes.
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 So that was this week's Numero de los Muertos. Okay, it is time for the lightning round. So, Bobby, these are some completely, utterly non-cigar related questions. They are just for fun. They are just to mix things up. So, first question. If you could hear the thoughts of one living person for 10 minutes, who would it be and why?
But to me, I'm on my 4th Tesla, and I have one that gets 403 miles of charge. I was a forestry minor in college. I've always been interested in alternative energy. We have our home. We have 68 Tesla solar panels, and it dropped our electric bill about 80%. And I was interested in, coincidentally, what's going on in Afghanistan and the Middle East. interested in not depending. I don't think we should depend on the Middle East to get oil. Of course, things are changing so rapidly, but so that's why I said Elon Musk. I'm sure I'll know.
Yeah, we've heard that answer before. He's one of those genius types that you just want to.
He's on my list.
You want to know what he's thinking. Okay, if you were about to get into a fight, what would your soundtrack music be?
Oh my God, from Rocky.
Yeah,
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, that's a very popular answer. Definitely a good choice. Okay, choose one of the following. You could hit a home run as a starting pitcher. You could score a touchdown as a defensive lineman. You could score a goal in a hockey game or a soccer game as the goalie.
Well, since I live in Tampa and the Tampa Bay Lightning have won back-to-back Stanley Cups, I'd have to say I've never heard of that. I'm sure it's happened in the NHL.
It's rare. Yeah.
I was definitely a goalie. Vasilevsky. We've got an incredible goalie. We have a cigar bar. We have a Diamond Crown. The only cigar lounge that we know of in the National Hockey League is in Tampa.
Yeah.
The Diamond Crown Cigar Lounge. Yeah. Hey, Matt and Garrett, I have one for you all. Maybe you can use it later too. A question, but that's my answer.
Well, you said you have a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to know what you and your listeners and people watching this podcast, if you could meet any president, starting with George Washington, all the way up until our current president, who would you like to have dinner with? A cigar and your favorite beverage.
Dinner and a cigar and a drink with. Right off the top of my head, I have to go with Thomas Jefferson.
And the reason?
Because he was one of the he was one of the smartest men that lived during his time period, and his intelligence and the mind that he had for the thought processes that he put into he along with the other people of his time, but specifically him, because he really was the architect of a lot of our founding documents. He was almost obsessed with learning more about the nature of freedom and the nature of freedom as it comes to mankind living a free life and being a part of a free society. He put so much of his time and effort into learning about that, and he put so much of what he learned into many of the founding documents, including the Declaration of Independence, helping with the authoring of the Constitution, and so many other writings of his that I would just want to listen to him talk about the nature of mankind wanting to live as a free society. Definitely.
I would be the Gipper.
Reagan.
Yeah.
He's up there with me. I would definitely love that too.
And I think for me, it would be Reagan, because not only was he the first president that I really remember growing up, but he didn't have to go into politics. He didn't have to do so many things, and you saw the passion in which He dealt with both domestic and foreign affairs. And I think he changed politics in a big way in America. And his love for country, God and country he wore on his sleeve. So that would be my first guess, or my first answer.
What about you, Bobby? Which president what's your choice?
Probably George Washington.
Hmm.
It's a cross between Washington and Lincoln, who both were incredible presidents, incredible people. Well, with George Washington, what he did, and if he would have lost the war, England, he was considered a traitor. He would have been hanged.
Yeah.
And given up everything he had. And most people have been to Mount Vernon, and which is a beautiful, incredible, it's a holy place. And if you followed and read about the Revolutionary War, when he was down to less than 1,000 troops, and when he was at Valley Forge and they were freezing to death, just the tenacity. Was it 8 years? And he had people that were in our own army and he had a lot of enemies, not only generals in our own army, but with politicians. And to have that much, where you have some of your own generals were against you, but more you're fighting an enemy where when the Revolutionary War started, especially in the Carolinas, there were more people dying. Americans, they were fighting each other because America was split. Should we leave the king? Should we leave England? Everything is going pretty well, and they had no enemies back then except the Native Americans. That's because we screwed them all, by the way. But
that's right.
It's but for him to he was born in 1732 and he died in 1799. I'm a George Washington fan, along with Lincoln. And George Washington died at 67. He died of strep throat. And if you know the story, back then, when you had I don't even know if you want to call it a disease, but when you had these simple challenges, they would bleed. What they would do is they would stick a needle in your arm, and they would try to take your blood out. They felt, we'll just take out the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And to the point he was so weak, he said, "Just let me go," and type of thing.
Yeah.
And here's the father of our country.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that one of the things I love about his story is that he willingly gave up the highest seat of power.
Yes.
He said, I could keep doing, because at the time the rules were different.
Right.
They would have let him just stay president until he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, no, it's time to give this seat to somebody else. And that set the precedent for the future of holding
Presidential terms.
a president to a limited term in office.
Right.
And that was it's unheard of in that I can recall in the history of the world, that the person holding the highest seat of power willingly gave it up so that somebody else could have a chance.
Yeah, and Matt and Garrett, did you know that a lot of people in the United States wanted him to be king?
Yes.
And which would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
And I mean, for him to be willing to give up everything, including his own life. And America's been blessed with some incredible leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's move into this week's Notable Smokable. And as always, Notable Smokables are brought to us by our friends at Ace Prime Cigars. Notable cigars, notable passion, notable purpose. So, Bobby, each week we each name a cigar that we smoked recently that was interesting to us. It could be a cigar that's been on the market for decades that we just smoked for the first time in a long time, or it could be a cigar that's newer to the market that we also just smoked for the first time. Anything that stood out that you've smoked recently. And of course, you know, being from JC Newman Cigar Company, you're smoking most of your own product. But what is that you're holding up there?
We're a 126-year-old company. This is the Perla de Mar Corojo. We've never used Corojo wrapper in 126 years, and we got a break. Cigar Aficionado rated the cigar. It was like 1991, about 6 months ago, and this is whether you like Cigar Aficionado or you don't like it, they can still make all the toilets flush in downtown Minneapolis at the same time.
Yes, they can.
With a rating, a good rating, and good reviews. There's a lot of respect around the world. There are a lot of great magazines, but Cigar Aficionado, they were there first. And and the La Gloria Cubano, you know, Ernesto, he sold his company. Both for $40 million. Cigar Aficionado gave the first 10 issues, La Gloria Cubano, Ernesto Carrillo's brand. It was getting the highest ratings, and he was able to sell his. I don't know if that was his end game, but he was able to sell the company to General Cigar Company, and of course now he's great, incredible, humble human being, just a great guy. I don't know if he's been on your show, but he's just he's one of my favorite people in the industry and outside of the industry too.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been on the show, but we definitely hope to have him on someday. So Garrett, did you have a notable this week?
I did have a notable.
Did it just skip your mind?
It just totally.
Well, I'll tell mine, and you can look yours up while I'm telling them. So when we had our Minnesota summer Minnesota Herf Connection, it's a Facebook group of great Minnesota cigar smokers, and we had our big summer Herf just a few weeks ago, and I was given a cigar by Jim, who's a friend of mine, friend of ours, and it was a very old Indian Tobacco Natural. So this was back when Indian Tobacco was still when they had just the brand ownership had just it was sort of dual ownership between Rocky Patel and Phil Zangi, and back when they still had the old Indian chief headdress.
Oh yeah, remember logos
on the band. So this cigar was somewhere probably boxed and sold somewhere in the 2010, 2011 range, and still had plenty of flavor even 10 plus years later. Just smoked it yesterday or over the weekend, and still after all these years, plenty of flavor left in that cigar.
And I remembered mine was the Paul Gamarian 30th.
Oh yeah, I haven't had a PG cigar in a long time.
Yeah, and I had never had the 30th, and very unique cigar.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I loved it.
Very nice. So to give our I got to do this thing, finish that segment out, and that was this week's Notable Smokables, brought to you by Ace Prime, improving lives through fine cigars. Visit aceprime.com to learn more. So to give our viewers and listeners an idea of some cool stuff we have coming up in the next few weeks, coming up on the 13th of September, we have Nick Perdomo from Perdomo Cigars. And then actually just a couple days later, we're going to have a special Wednesday broadcast. And this is a special broadcast because we're going to be live at an event here in Minneapolis that has really grown over the years. And it's something that we're excited to be able to give a chance to put them on live and really get the word out about this, because they do some great work for children in the area. The event is called Cigars and Baseball. And there are a number of cigar manufacturers and food vendors that will be a part of this event. The proceeds go directly to the Children's Miracle League, if I'm saying that correctly. Right. So they basically they give children who are undergoing some pretty rough circumstances an opportunity to be a regular kid for a while, play some baseball, and also hopefully get some, just a little bit of help, a little bit of a step up. So it's an exciting opportunity for us as How About That Cigar to bring some more attention to what they have going on, and just share the love again in the cigar community for some people who could use a little extra help. So that's some cool stuff we have coming up in the near future. So Bobby, give our viewers and listeners a final idea. Where's the best place for them to keep up with everything going on at JC Newman Cigars? And if you have any special events or anything like that coming up soon, let us know about that as well.
Absolutely. And we've got Adria, who runs our social media website. And so if you visit jcnewman.com, there's a section in there for events. I will say, this is public information. Drew Estate came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago and said they're doing no more events for the rest of the year, as you know. And so we are, unfortunately, Tampa is the epicenter for COVID coming back. And so we've had to cancel the rest of our events for this month, for August. And this is supposed to peak in Tampa in late September. So we are, and listen, the last pandemic was in 1918, and there's no one alive to ask what happened after the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we don't know we're all going in uncharted territories as Americans and the rest of the world, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, guys, keep up with everything going on with JC Newman. They've really, there's, like I said, I've said it 100 times this broadcast, and I'll keep saying it. There's some great history behind this company.
Yep.
And I encourage you all to take the time to learn about it. And Bobby, we want to say thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast this evening. We had an absolute blast talking to you and learning from you about your family. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. And listen, thank you for letting us come into your home. And we please, to you, Garrett and Matt and your listeners, please come down and see us. Starting this fall, we're going to start having hand cigar making classes in our hand cigar making factory called the American. The room is called the American. It's funny because the last ad, Smoke In, Abe is a very good friend of ours, and he had his radio show in this past Saturday.
Yeah, I saw that. It was great.
Oh yeah, and he's a terrific guy. There are so many wonderful people in our industry, and as you know, and you've had them a lot. You've had a lot of them on your show. I was tickled to see that with Abe. He's a dear friend and smart, passionate. To hear how he got into business is incredible. His story. He came from the grocery industry in Chicago, and how he ended up where he is. Been extremely successful, extremely generous to all those where he is in the Palm Beach area. Yeah.
So thanks again. And for our viewers and listeners, guys, we're grateful to you as always for spending Monday night with us live on Facebook and live on YouTube. For those of you listening after the fact on the audio podcast, we're grateful to you as well. As always, if you guys have questions for myself or for Garrett, you can email us right on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Follow us on all social media at HBT Cigar. And until we see you guys next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.